How many of these pitchers that sign when they're 32, these monster deals, when they've already proven themselves, really, truly work out?
Not a ton of them do. Like,
right?
I try to think about the guys with the Phillies, like Zach Wheeler has been going strong.
He's been going good.
And then signs another deal, so that's been one that's good. And
you win with them, too. Like,
how many years was Wheeler's deal? Because I know Nolan's was 7. And Cam, the way that this stuff works, you sign a guy to a 7-year deal. These guys don't hit free agency until basically a range of 28 to 32 years
for the first
old.
time.
Yeah.
And then if you're one of the guys who's like 28 years old, or like Jordan Walker might be 27, 28 when he hits free agency. So he might actually get like a second decent free agent. Carlos Beltran had like 3 really good free agencies because he just didn't age at all.
Yeah,
but
he kept performing.
When you sign these long-term deals, you're basically accepting that the final 2 or 3 years of the deal are gonna be way overpaying.
Oh, especially when, like, for instance, the Dodgers just signed Will Smith, their catcher, to a 10-year contract, $140 million. And everybody's going, my goodness, 10 years for a catcher. But I think the way the Dodgers do it nowadays, because they're always in the luxury tax bubble, where they're going to be paying a fee, dollar per dollar, on every dollar they spend above a certain level. So when they sign a guy for 10 and 140, $14 million per year is what goes against the luxury tax. It's really like a 7-year deal. And that player would be worth about $20 million per year over 7. So they just make the deal be longer, and they don't really care about the end of it. But for Cardinals fans, and the way the Cardinals operate their budget, they don't want to dole out these multi-year contracts to pitchers, and it's really like they're not alone. Blake Snell won the Cy Young, and he couldn't even get the multi-year deal that he was looking for at a fair AAV.
100%.
Here's why.
Oh, hello.
Here's why.
Man.
Welcome back.
Man.
I had to stump for a while.
That was it.
Well, we have
just wanna
3 people.
That was an all-time coffee.
Well, you were
fit.
fine for an hour.
I just
Yeah.
wanna-
And it's got you.
For those of you not in the studio,
At some point, the phlegm is going to kick in. I still haven't beaten this because I was just in freezing cold weather.
Soaked.
yeah.
For
Guys,
what? How many days?
When Brendan was talking, the entire time Kat was out in the hall.
I had to just.
You went with it. You saw it.
Vamping. Is that what they call that? What do they call that?
That's a TV term.
Is that right?
You
That's
have
what
2
I was-
panelists right here who could have helped you.
I learned that
Oh,
from
he's fine.
Succession, by the way.
He's fine.
That word.
The way it's shaken out, right, it looks pretty good. But spring training is usually where you lose 2 starters.
And they only lost 1, which is good.
And they only lost 1, and
Yep.
he's coming back soon, right? So it's worked out well until you hit injuries. So that's why when you say we have 5 starters, maybe 2 guys depth that are ready to at least step in, I thought they were going to be 1 starter short. Now, it could work out well because the truth is, if like Gibson looked good, I still think Lance is going to have a solid season.
I agree.
It could work out beautifully where you didn't have to overextend yourself financially or monkey around too much with the rotation until someone gets hurt. And I like Zach Thompson. I like Liberatore better in the bullpen. And to be honest, none of the young guys have shown they are ready for prime time.
And that was the problem last year. That's how they got into the situation of need to sign 3 guys.
So that's why I said they were starter short, because it seemed like they were putting themselves in exactly the same situation that got them into trouble last season. So I was like, get another guy.
I think the difference, though, in their minds is the guys they did get are more durable, supposed to make it through, more reliable than what they had last year. Well, they're older, but Wainwright was one of the 5 last year, and he was not reliable, not durable, and was older than any of these guys. So that's one guy they replaced with, like a Lynn, who he's older relative to some people, but he's...
I don't disagree with anything. Again, we're arguing about the minutia, and I like the moves the Cardinals made. I just felt, based on going into spring training and what happened to them last year, where the starting rotation faltered and that started the collapse, I thought they're putting themselves in a bad situation where you can't have back-to-back disastrous seasons.
It was a risk to go in with what they had depth-wise behind their starting 5, but I think they had more confidence in the starting 5 itself to be able to withstand the rigors of that, because they think these guys are going to just stay healthier, which, yes, that was a risk. And to this point, it's panned out even with an injury that happens to Sonny Gray. But I feel like they think they're in a good spot to where maybe you do lose a guy and you get to June, July, around 500, little above. Maybe they can add if the Thompsons and everybody else of the world don't step forward. But the problem was, when you're paying 5 starters 8-figure salaries, it's hard to go sign another guy and tell the guy that's making money you're going to the bullpen before we even get into it. If their 5-starter was making the minimum, like let's say the Mats contract doesn't exist and a guy being paid what Thompson is being paid, but has proven it already to where you're fully comfortable with him being in your 5. If that's your situation, I think you can then go and say, look, we like Thompson. The Dodgers do this all the time. We like our number 5 Thompson, but this Montgomery guy is pretty good, and the market's come down to where we need to take this opportunity and jump in. I don't think you can do something like that, at least from their perspective, when you have 5 starters that are being paid the way that they were. That's where Mo would say it's complicated, and fans don't like hearing that. And I don't like stumping for it.
Well,
but
you made
it
complicated with your signings. I mean,
100%. What caused the signings? They didn't have anyone developed. That's the thing.
Right. And we agree. And it's not even criticizing the organization. They made it complicated. But again,
I'll criticize the development.
Hindsight's 20/20. It's worked out to this point, and it's worked out beautifully for him. I really like what Gibson did in his first start. His last start of the spring was really good too.
It just had life to him, man.
Right? Yeah. And so I think Lance is going to be fine. Matz is a guy. He pitched well in his first start, but he kind of got his groove back working out of the bullpen. So it's not like there's not a track record. You say, hey, we're going to start this way. You know an injury's coming. We need you. It could have been done. It wasn't done, and so far it hasn't hurt him. So there we are.
Would you have signed, when you say you need another starter, and I don't even necessarily fundamentally disagree with you, I just like to go into why it didn't happen because I feel like that's the complication of the salaries of everybody. What caliber of a starter would you have? Would you just say, go get a Montgomery-type guy at the end because the deal was there? Or do you get somebody that's another Lynn, another Gibson type?
The guy I would have, instead of Gibson, who I like, I would have gone Waka.
I don't agree with that, actually.
Waka, who's not pitched well with Kansas City so far in, one or two
And that's
starts.
not why I don't agree with it. What's Waka historically?
130
innings.
130 innings, right.
A lot of times. What's Gibson historically? The whole thing was the innings that they didn't want to have to go to this year's Dakota Hudson because they didn't like the result of that last year, and they don't have enough faith in that depth group.
I kind of felt like Lynn and Gibson were redundant. Where they're good. You got innings.
You're not alone in that statement, but I don't agree with it.
You got innings, eaters.
Yeah.
And you just maybe want more efficient innings. Now, Gibson could end up being really efficient this year. I like what I've seen from him, and hopefully he'll be better than a 5 ERA, a 4.9 ERA. But that's what I would have done earlier, and I probably would have gotten sort of a borderline guy who could start too to add in the mix just in case, worst case scenario, sore arm, elbow, something.
That's 2 roster spots, though, too.
No, a guy who could also be out of the bullpen, like a...
Yeah, but they've got guys in the bullpen that they like. Like Ryan Fernandez probably gets boxed out and he's back with Boston if they had used, because that's what they did last year. They had starters and then guys that were, he can come in and throw 4 innings when the starter flames out. And they wanted to just say, can we just have the guys that are going to be the starters and we know they're in theory getting through 5, 6, 7 innings and we don't have to have the flame out guy in the background taking up a 26-man roster spot just in case.
And then
intentional.
And then eventually they had guys who shouldn't have been getting starts getting starts.
Well, by the end, it was what it was. But like the Waka thing in particular, because in St. Louis, we know what Waka is and has been, and I think he's a good pitcher. You could tell me he's going to have a 3.75 ERA for Kansas City.
Lower.
But if you told me it's going to be...
the last couple of years,
for
lower.
Sure. Let's say 3.5, but we know he's only going to throw 120 innings. Do you take that over... Gibson throwing 180, 185.
What's the ERA comparison?
Well, and that's the thing. He had a 4.7 ERA last year, Kyle Gibson did. But something interesting, too, and he mentioned this after the start that he had this year, and he gave up that solo shot to Tatis later on, but he said there was an element of pitching to the score where your team has this lead, and you know that as the 5-starter or whatever you are, your job is to kind of get him that 7th inning. So you throw more strikes because of the score, and your ERA can maybe reflect that. So if he was doing that a lot last year because the Orioles he won so many games because the Orioles offense was so good, is part of Kyle Gibson's 4.7 ERA instead of a 4.2 ERA that he was, making sure to pound strikes later on in games because they had such a big lead. That might make him look... I hadn't thought about that until it was... I saw it brought up on Twitter, and I thought, well, that actually is something that could be kind of relevant.
I think that's fair. And again, I think Gibson has a chance to be really good and a really important piece of their rotation this year.
He didn't want him on the team, though, you said.
I'm just saying, when they signed him, I felt like it was redundant, with what they already had, and I probably would have gone in a different direction. But hindsight is 20/20.
It's also easier to see now because
lays
you know
out
how
very well.
You know how it played out.
Yeah.
At the time, they thought we need 3 guys. I hope we can get them because if we can't, we're screwed. And those guys wanted to come play here.
I
So.
try to stand by the things I've said, and when I'm wrong, I'll say I'm wrong instead of saying that was never discussed.
What about the timeline of it, though? Because they came out of the gate firing immediately. They clearly made it obvious, and Cardinals fans obviously knew this, that they needed quantity. But they came out of the gate with Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn back-to-back immediately. And so...
Because now you're safe. The bottom can't drop out of that rotation because you've got guys that have been there and done that, and you don't have Casey Lawrence throwing 50 innings. And
right. But you signed 2 guys who are probably going to be in the back half of your rotation, and I think that Cardinals fans envisioned signing guys who were going to be at the top of the end of the rotation. So because you signed those 2 guys immediately, you were only going to get one of the actually really good starters, which ended up being Sonny Gray. I think fans are excited about that, once he gets back from this injury little deal that he's going through right now. But if we fast forward all the way to the end of free agency, when Jordan Montgomery ended up being available, and obviously there's no way for us to know what Jordan Montgomery's asking price was at the beginning of free agency versus the end of free agency, so we're kind of being hypothetical a little bit here.
No, you do know. Okay, it was a lot in the beginning and a lot of years.
Yeah. I mean AAV wise.
But the number of years, the number of years is what matters on that because the years determines the total.
I know that.
It determines the total outlay of the contract. AAV is almost wholly irrelevant unless you include the context of how many years because you need the total. You need to know the total because that's what Bill DeWitt needs to know before he agrees to the contract.
But here's the difference, though, is that Jordan Montgomery is at a 25-year AAV. And you have Lance Lynn plus Kyle Gibson's at 22-year AAV.
Right.
Once those 2 drop off, you're going to replace them or re-sign them, I guess, with other guys who are about 22 AAV. So if you keep doing that every year, Jordan Montgomery for 6 years or whatever it was is not that different from whoever you replace Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn
That's
with
why
every
I bring
single
up
year.
Development because you don't want to have to scrounge for an $11 million guy or 2 or 3 every year in free agency. You want to develop an internal option and have that guy pitch on $750,000 for 3 years, but not be a number 6. He's a number 2 because you developed him and you finally. They haven't. When's the last time they've had a guy do that? It's been a long time.
Yes, there's no question. And with Montgomery, I liked him. I thought the Cardinals should have approached him at some point during the season.
Well, he said that was not even going to be a factor after February. He was like, we'll wait.
He said too late.
Yeah, he wanted it in spring training if they were going to do it.
He would have done it early. They waited too long into the season. I don't even think they ever broached it.
I doubt
and
they did, yeah.
And he said, too late, not interested in it. When I asked him at whatever point it was. But there are some people, Montgomery was lights out during the postseason.
He was awesome.
He was really good during the season.
And got a 1-year deal.
Right? People are wondering, it's not just the Cardinals, the cheap chokers. There are a lot of people that were like, do we want to give this guy 7 years like the other guys?
They didn't give Blake Snell. He got
apparently
a year.
Not.
Won the Cy Young. So it's not just, it's part of the market. It's not just the Cardinals. And when the Cardinals are already paying 5 guys 8 figures, I kind of give them a little bit of a pass to say, it's not that they don't spend on pitching. It's that they have forced themselves into a spot where they have to sort of patch up the bottom of the rotation with short-term deals because they haven't developed the cheaper starter that you can throw into the number 2 or 3 spot of your rotation comfortably. And then you go, well, now we can kind of splurge on a guy if a deal comes to fruition in late March because we don't have to spend a minimum of 10 or 11 million just to have a number 5.
Who's the guy you think is going to develop into a guy that they can put into?
Do I have confidence that they have one? I don't have utmost confidence that they have one, and that's a bit of a concern. But 2024 is hopefully the other teams do it all the time. And I don't even know, but you have 6 or 7 guys: Graceffo, Tink Kentz, Jerpy, McGreevy, if he can miss more bats. Like, you have a whole group of guys that maybe just one of them, Tekoa Roby, can one of those guys just do what other teams' prospects sometimes do? I'm almost saying it like it's unfair. Like, why can't the Cardinals? But I think it's also
who's the guy you like the
chicken
most?
Or the egg.
I like Hentz.
I think I like Hentz the most. I think it's, and Mo said yesterday, I forget who asked it, but 100 innings, is that fair for him? And Mo said, yeah, I should certainly think that's the expectation. They got to have him pitch this year. Like, they've brought him along so slowly, and I get it. He was a slight kid out of high school that's put on some muscle, but now it's time to be like,
slight.
He's still slight, but it's like, is he going to be a starting pitcher at the big league level or not? And to find that out, he's got to throw innings. And so they've got to kind of take the training wheels off a little bit, in my opinion, this summer, if we're going to find that out.
Now, here's the thing that Cole will not like about any of the guys in the current Cardinals starting rotation. They all want to be out there for the anthem.
That's fine.
And
The anthem.
we've brought it full circle, Cam.
Yeah, we did. But the good news is we got Daddy Padre that wants to ask you a question, and we got Kalachi's from Wombat. Appreciate that, Wombat. I know you're still listening. Daddy Padre, what's up, baby?
Hey, what's up?
Are you going tonight? Are you going tonight?
To what?
Chasers thing?
To what?
That's
I don't
no.
know.
That means no.
I mean, I guess I could. You want me to go?
I don't care. I mean,
He wants you to beg
I'd
him.
like you there.
I'd
like to see you
There'll
there.
be plenty more people there.
We haven't hung out in a while, so maybe I will.
Schaefer
Bring the
wants
girls.
you to go.
Bring
I
the
won't be
Schaefer
there, but
wants
I'd
you
like him to be there.
What's your question?
Me and Schaefer plan will be the show tonight. So Schaefer, 2 questions, and for the cat, honestly, like down there yesterday. Arenado obviously had a good day. He still looks like funky. What do you guys think this like half swing thing that he's doing is? Like, what's that? Is that just being lost to the plate? Like, it's been dating back to like last year, and obviously he hasn't hit a home run since last August, which is even crazier. But do you guys think it's like a sign of just like legitimate decline because he can't keep up, or do you think he's like tinkering on the fly and it's like some kind of new swing he's trying? It just looks super strange the way he's swinging the bat.
I think he's looked. I mean, he had a good day yesterday. It's been really cold. I know that's not an excuse, but there's certain hitters that just get better when it's hot
and
or warmer.
He's one of them.
He's one of the guys. But I'll say even defensively, there was a ball that kind of chewed him up.
Wasn't an error, but it was one that he probably should have.
At least get a glove on, right? And even running the bases, like he looks a little out of sorts, but I just don't see it as total decline. I see a guy who put a lot of pressure on himself to bounce back from last year, 26 homers, 93 RBIs, awful year. For him it was, and he put a lot of pressure on himself saying, look, in terms of leadership, in terms of who I am for the team, I have to be better. So he got off to a slow start. I would not bet against him having a big year, and I think it'll start when the weather gets warm.
He wants it so badly, and sometimes it's like he wants it too much to where I think it gets in his way sometimes. But that's just the way he's got one speed. And so you kind of take the good with the bad on that. I think the check swing stuff that you did see a little bit of that last year too. I think it's again just a desire I want to make a big play, a big moment right here. I want to help my team right here. And sometimes you're maybe geared up to swing at something that's not as and then you kind of realize halfway through and it results in the check swing.
No, and then the other thing I had was I watched you guys' pregame comments with Sonny Gray. Do you think he was asking through the media basically that I want you pitch like here, or do you think like he has any sort of pull with that at all, or do you think they're like, I know he's supposed to pitch today in Memphis, but do you think that there's any chance they change it up now with what he kind of said? Because I know he's obviously got some I'm sure he's got some power a little bit, and if he feels like he can pitch here, and I mean I wouldn't say all the starters have been going extremely deep into games, so if he says he's willing to give you 70 pitches, I don't think it's like much worse than what Thompson's been giving you. So what do you guys think about that? I
think he was being totally honest.
Yep.
I think there was just a guy who didn't expect, that the media would be on him, and he gave an honest answer. And I believe that he'll talk, like he said, probably today, maybe tomorrow, and they'll figure it out. And I think he's going to end up pitching one more time in Memphis because, I mean, it's fair to say you threw 54. Let's have you get to 70, 75. And then we'll just make sure because we need you for the long haul. And I think that's reasonable, and I think he'll listen to
And they threw 5 relievers yesterday. Like, you want to keep the bullpen. The bullpen's been pretty fresh. Guys are mostly just having to go an inning. Ollie talked about that being a benefit last night. I feel like you don't want to tempt fate with that. You already had Matt's limited to 80 pitches his first time. organizationally, they might just prefer to have him wait. But I agree with Kat. Like, he's just a candid guy and thoughtful guy. And so he thought, man, this is kind of how I feel. So I'll tell you, I don't think it's deeper than that. There's not like discord and it's not like an internal strife to me. I just don't think that's.
No, I didn't think like that. But I did notice, Kat, when he came out to see the Hall of Famer, he did have a baseball in that back pocket. He's always got that baseball.
Good for you.
Good for you.
Baseball.
Good for you. He does. I don't. We're so jaded. We're so jaded that we have to pick on like the. I'm saying no. I've seen him. He does always have a baseball. Nope. He probably has the burger phone.
No, but when you pump it up, like this guy really does. I'm just said
pump it up. I just think it's a fun little side
You
note.
came on here and talked about it for 20 minutes. We're like, this guy does this. He has a ball everywhere. We're like, yeah, I bet he doesn't. I bet he does.
Wait, it's the dumbest thing because do you think that if a minor league pitcher with an ERA of 12 starts carrying a ball around, that'll make him good? It means nothing on whether he's a good pitcher or not. I
didn't say it did.
I thought it was an interesting.
It did, Charlie.
I thought it was a little. I think. Hold on, let me finish.
Oh no!
I thought it was an interesting little quirk that I brought up, not as a big deal, and you guys immediately disputed it.
We did.
I talked about it for 20 minutes.
You did.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
I thought
and
it was
we're just like no. I bet you. I bet you I'll see him at the gas station.
No. Again, Charlie, I didn't come on with a 20-minute monologue. I just thought it was an interesting quirk, and immediately the haters went,
no,
he doesn't. And I had to say, no, he does. He does.
You both called each other Charlie during that. It's the only thing I took away.
That's great. Anything else, Daddy Padre?
They got to fix those uniforms up for the love of God. Josh, and the Marlins have even smaller font. They even have smaller numbers. Like Josh Bell had the tiniest looking name I've ever seen.
What's like 4 letters?
I don't even notice.
It's not good.
I didn't notice it.
Like you could see some guys when they have their jerseys tucked in, like you can see the outline of where the tuck in is. It's not the end of the world. It should be better.
The lettering is the worst part of it for me.
It's just amateur. And the guy that owns Fanatics, whatever his name is, Ruben. I saw him like spouting back off on Twitter about it. He's like, "Well, we did exactly what they wanted us to do," and it's like, yeah,
I can't blame Nike.
I don't think anybody said that they wanted them to change the font. If you want to change the materials, and like the cat said, if you can see through it, it's a little.
But
odd.
the reason why the reason why the lettering, as I'm told, is smaller, is because the new fabric can't hold the bigger one.
And it's performance based. And I never really thought about that. If you're wearing those uniforms that had the big bulky lettering and numbering, you probably, as you're playing, do you notice that, or do you just get used to it after a while? This is supposed to.
Notice.
I don't think so either. But they're couching this as it's performance based. The players' feedback told us that.
I thought the material was performance.
I think it's both.
When we went, because Lou would have these old school practice jerseys from the '90s, and you would not change them. He wouldn't change them until the league came down and said, "No, Adidas is sponsoring. You got to get the new Adidas."
That's fine.
And the difference between that material they had in the '90s and the Adidas material was night and day. You could totally tell playing. But I don't know the old school.
You talking about the Reebok Edge jerseys?
Yeah, dude, those things were nice, man. They were really thin.
I know.
Move around,
I never
flip out of them.
I never wore socks as a goalie, but I'm sure you, like with your player socks, like I know a lot of my buddies that had to wear the Reebok Edge socks, they didn't like the socks, but they said the jerseys were way more breathable. I love the Adidas jerseys. I think the Adidas jerseys look great, but the scary thing I'm worried about next year is how bad the NHL jerseys are going to look with Fanatics coming in.
Yeah, that's right.
They're next.
Small lettering.
And
Who is that?
You think baseball people are crazy about jerseys?
Oh boy.
Yeah, they are.
They might be the craziest with jerseys too.
Yeah, they are.
I'll hop off, boys. But
all right,
you guys
homie.
have a good weekend.
All right.
And Cam, I'll try to come out there tonight. We'll see what's going on.
He won't be there.
Do your thing. It's all good.
All right.
I'm still going to dominate anyway.
He'll be as there as Cole was at Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
It'll be the same.
Yeah, the Mardi Gras thing. Yeah, I get that. We don't need to get back into it. We had a good time down there. Doesn't matter. Can someone tell me Can someone tell me what they think of Dusty Blake? I'm trying to understand why he is the pitching coach. He just doesn't seem to me that he's very good at it. What am I missing? Charlie's premium subscriber Ken.
Well, let's be fair. Because we already accused this team for having a lack of talent pitching wise, and so we kind of got to pick one.
Right.
I'm not necessarily saying that Dusty Blake is good because I have no idea. So I guess we'll have to judge that based off of how pitchers. Actually, here's probably the best way to judge it. We got to wait for the sample size to actually play out. How do Lance Lynn, Kyle Gibson, and Sonny Gray perform? When you bring in new guys who we have evidence of how they performed elsewhere when they come here, that's the best thing I got for you.
Okay.
Because I have no idea how to square the circle of we don't think the pitching's talented, and we also don't think that our pitching coach is talented. So how do we assess blame for a pitcher going out there and getting lit up?
Kat, your thoughts on assessing the pitching coach, Dusty Blake, as it pertains to how 36-year-old Lance Lynn and 36-year-old Kyle Gibson performed this year?
Okay, first let me say that was a very mature opinion by Cole. I'll give you a bell.
My
However,
word.
I see what you're cooking up because Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn, Dusty Blake will have very little to do with how they go about it.
Yeah.
Okay, pitching coach is like the hitting coach in a sense that they're there to make suggestions, to say what they see. The veteran guys usually have their own hitting people, and if you have a good relationship with the hitting coach or the pitching coach, then the veteran will seek them out for assistance too, or if nothing's working. But it's not like the pitching coach is responsible for this or that. Younger guys, maybe more so. But the truth is, when I ask some of the pitchers what they think about Dusty Blake, not on camera, they all seem to like him, and they all seem to think he's doing a good job. So while Twitter doesn't think so, the people that he's coaching kind of think he's a good coach. It's really hard to assess, but with a veteran rotation, the impact that he will have isn't enough to blame him if they falter, probably not.
That's kind of my thought too, is like how much of an impact is he going to day-to-day go, Lance Lynn, like, here's what you really should have done, or here's what I just don't envision it going that way. So, but like, and that's the thing.
Well,
like,
he's still a coach. Like, he's got to be able to correct them if they're not doing something right.
Yeah, but it's not like a high school coach. It's not. And I hear you.
Sounds like a good job to have.
Cole is coming from a place of genuine earnestness in this take, and that's
Ignorance.
why. No, he's being earnest.
Well.
But people on Twitter kind of think that way too. Of like, well, if Kyle Gibson's bad, that means Dusty Blake doesn't know what he's saying. How much is he really going to tell Kyle Gibson? Here's how you need to do your pitching, guy who's my age. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, Wilson Contreras was catching his entire career for 6 or 7 years, and then he came here and, you don't know how to do this.
What's the comparison, though?
What's your point?
Not Dusty.
Just an anthem take?
Not Dusty Blake. Not Dusty Blake.
How was that?
Rephrase that. I don't know what you're even trying to say.
Okay, here's what I'm trying to say. It's great that Kyle Gibson and Lance Lynn are veterans.
Okay.
But they shouldn't be able to just only police themselves.
What is policing? Please understand what a coach does. Like, Lance Lynn gave up 2 homers on his 4-seamer.
That's not Dusty Blake's fault.
Do you think Dusty Blake's going to say, Lance, come in, no more 4-seamers?
No, but
you've been throwing that
he's
thing.
He's got a report
You've
card
been throwing
for him.
that thing for 47 years, no more. It's not like that. They'll look at the shape of the pitch when he's throwing it.
Sure.
They'll suggest some things. A lot of things, too, is, hey, we're facing this team for this series. Here's what you'll have to look out with certain guys.
It's scouting report stuff.
Scouting is
That's
a big
the
part
biggest
of what
part
they
of it.
do. It's not policing. I mean, maybe with the younger guys, hey, you're getting into some bad habits here with where you're bringing the ball
noticed
up with
this,
a release point or something like that. But for veteran guys, it's a lot of prep, scouting report. If they see something, hey, Lance, your landing spot is a little off. Maybe you notice that too. But it's not like policing is like, hey, Lance, no more 4-seamers.
Yeah.
It's not like that.
No, I wasn't suggesting that, but I'm saying that if they're coaches, they have to know something about something, and if they have knowledge to give, then they should be able to give it.
We just said that,
and I think they'll give it, but I also don't think it's like he's going to make or break the seasons of 36-year-old starters who have been around the block a little bit.
And it's the same with a hitting coach, like with the young guys. Like I always tell the story of Burleson, who wasn't listening to the hitting coach early on because he admitted to me, I've hit at every level. I kind of have a thing. And they just brought up some minor changes in what he was doing, and he did listen. A veteran guy probably isn't going to change unless he's having he's hit rock bottom. Veteran guys who are going to hit, who might be having a bad 3 or 4 games, aren't revamping anything. So coaches will make suggestions, but veteran guys kind of know what they're doing, especially pitchers. Like pitchers over the years have been taught how to self-diagnose. Like if I'm high on my delivery or I'm outside, that's because my landing foot is here or because my release point is too early. Like everything is video. And so the pitching
Which you have to watch. You have to watch the video. Waino said, I wasn't watching the video. Like in the defense of fans that would talk like this, there have been times where you look at Waino that year where I would have caught this if I was more diligent on my video work. I won't let that happen again. Matt Carpenter for years was, struggling, a little resistant to maybe some of the things that people were telling him as a veteran, and then later on said, maybe should have embraced this a little bit more. So in the defense of fans that think this way, there are times where veterans could probably stand to be a little more open, but just human nature relating to these people and what they've gone through and been through and done to get to where they are in the game, you can also see the other side of why they'd be like, I kind of have a thing.
But with Waino, I always was like, wait a minute. You didn't know that the landing spot was wrong?
It's a weird thing to...
You pitch bullpens in front of...
That was
a disconnect. Because first off, it's been my experience. I've never pitched, but I've talked to a lot of them. They all kind of know what they're doing without looking at the video because they've self-diagnosed for years. It's such a specialized science, that motion that makes you deliver the ball where you want it, that most starting pitchers, most bullpen, know exactly what they're doing wrong. They'll go check the video to double check. But more so, a starter throws a bullpen in front of other starters. They have eyes on it. I never bought that because someone would have seen something.
That's a fair point, and I wasn't talking to you on Hot Take Central back when that was going on.
Yeah, that was weird, man. I remember that.
That was always odd.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. You got video, you got a coach, but also the other starters are watching you. And over the years, I remember you saying another starter picked out something. They didn't see this.
Maybe that was
That's
something
weird.
where, in his most previous start, that happened, and so he sort of diagnosed that's been my problem for 6 weeks, when really maybe it happened in a start, and then you were able to say, I was
just found that.
That's fair. And I mean, it's not like he came back and had a great year as a result after that, which I know he was hurt last year, but
I think he was hurt a lot last
year.
year.
Well, he was.
The biggest issue with Mo is that he thinks he can build this team through free agency, which never works. He got burned on a couple bad trades over the last several years and now seems gun-shy to go back to that well. Free agency is full of overpaid and underperforming players. You have to be savvy in the trade market if you want to compete, and Mo hasn't been that way in several years. Charlie's neighbor and dear friend, Chris Pelican. Hey, dude.
Hey, Pelican.
Hey, Pelly.
I just saw him the other day at a restaurant. He's a good dude.
The Cardinals have only developed 2 pitchers, Lance Lynn and Bob Forsch, who lasted 5 years or more in the last 50 years. Everyone else has got hurt or flamed out. Fulgham, Cox, Morris, Bennis, Martinez, Waka, Hudson, and Flaherty. 618. Put a name in.
Flaherty's not done, and I give him credit for Waino because they got him.
I would give him credit for Waino.
They got him as a minor leaguer. I mean, he was developed in the Cardinal system.
Yeah, I feel like people are cherry-picking that stat of players that Cardinals have drafted themselves because they're intentionally dodging putting Waino in.
So it's two things, though, right? It's Waino counts, let's be real, but also Waino came up 20 years ago. It's been a minute.
Sure, they've been shooting blanks.
Yeah.
There's no question. And, to me, of all the starters they've had, Carlos Martinez had sick stuff.
It's another example. Yeah.
And who's the young man that they moved to the bullpen that I'm blanking on his name? He was hurt a lot, had the daughter.
Alex Reyes?
Alex Reyes.
Oh,
to me.
God, he was
To me, Alex Reyes
in 16
had the best stuff.
I remember that.
He had the best stuff of any of the prospects.
I'll never forget seeing him pitch in 16.
For the first time?
That was my first year covering the team. I was like, this guy is going to be unbelievable.
Remember, he walked out, he was getting a standing ovation. He goes out there, throws heat. And then he got hurt.
Man,
and then he got hurt again. Then he punched something, broke his hand.
Yeah.
Frustration.
That sucked. They pumped him up so much in St. Louis.
Because his stuff was real.
Yes. I remember
Not
that.
sustainable, apparently.
Did he put weight on?
He was hurt again.
Well, he's got a whole, I think it's like a whole shoulder thing now.
He wasn't old either.
He
was a big boy.
He might have put weight on now, but he lost the weight because, what was it? He drank Dr. Pepper, and he got off it, and he was thin.
And by the way,
Dr. Pepper will put LBs on
I think if you're going to keep talking about popcorn, you need to go ahead and credit credit JD on the popcorn thing.
Yeah, he gave me a bunch of grief.
Was
he right?
I think he was the only person who wrote that popcorn story, and then it was just in the vernacular. Everybody was talking about it, but it did originate from JD.
Okay, John Denton. During my time where I wasn't talking enough in the booth, I did bring up Gorman, and so he broke the popcorn oil story, which all I said was he found a different type of oil to put on his popcorn, but. So I just mentioned it.
Right.
It was John Denton. But so many people were talking about that. And my point was that's not the only thing he was doing. He changed his training routine to build up the strength in the areas around the back that was problematic. That was probably more important to him than the popcorn.
I think after what happened on television with you mentioning the popcorn and not giving proper credit, I believe that JD should be able to use the Bally sound without attribution moving forward. I think that's only fair.
Deal. He gave me grief for that.
He's always there anyway, so
I didn't know
he wouldn't need it.
I honestly didn't see that he had it.
I heard
just
the whole
heard
conversation.
People talking about it.
I heard you talking to him.
My point was there are times I will tweet something that and you're part of it, that the media scrum, which I call the amoeba, because you guys go in a pack.
Dude, I thought I was in a good spot for Mo yesterday, and then I had 3 people on top of me.
You guys
it was crazy.
But in the clubhouse, you guys amoeba together, because there's strength in numbers. I go it alone, and there's sometimes I'll tweet some, and you guys won't retweet it until everyone has it, then you retweet it. That's all I was saying.
Oh, if you like break something, report something?
Not like big news, but just like something that you would normally retweet, not you personally.
Yeah, I don't think I'll share it, but because then I'm like, well, I didn't report this, and
anyway,
I'm not going to now that it's.
Do a lot of people sit back and like a couple of the big boys in there, like Jimmy and Frankie?
No,
do they sit back and let you have to guide everybody?
Maybe post game, but pre-game, the amoeba stays together. The writers do all stay together, and then when the one writer goes, then they all go.
Yeah.
Now Frankie's solo, or sometimes we'll go. TV kind of goes different. But I think we get pretty good sound bites because I see the stuff. Frankie's excellent at getting a good sound bite.
It just depends, too. Sometimes TV might need something that the writers are like, well, that's not something we're imminently. But if it's newsworthy, TV and writers are all going to be in the same party because everybody needs to know.
But are you part of the writers' amoeba, or do you see it at all, or no?
Am
I right to a certain extent?
No, I mean, yes, it just kind of depends on it depends on who's talking and what they need to say and what people need to hear from them to do their job.
You all apparently need the exact same thing.
If there's
when
somebody
one writer moves, then all the writers
if there's
move.
an injury update on a guy, and it's not really like a one-on-one thing because we know everybody's going to kind of want this guy, we're all glancing at the guy to see when we can vibe that he's ready to talk, I feel like.
All right, fair enough.